And I ended up in a situation where I was in front of a higher power, and I know it was a higher power. There's no doubt about it.
Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ascension Gateway. Almost forgot the name of my channel. Ascension Gateway. Yes. And I am Sharon Sananda Kumara, your host. And today I am talking with Robert Bare. Hello, Robert.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And he is one of the founders of Spiritual Awakening International with Dr. Yvonne, who I interviewed on my channel as well recently. And you have your own near-death experiences to hope to share today with my audience. Is that I can't wait to hear more. You shared a little bit with me when we met recently, and it just sounds so amazing. And believe it or not, that photo behind you, behind Robert, is his photograph. He took that photograph. And can you share a little bit about that photograph again? You started to share with me.
Well, I became obsessed with light after I gravitated into light when I passed. And so I'm very lucky. I have a daughter that lives up in Alaska. She's an attorney up there. And I love to go up there and take photos. And there's the Northern Lights or whatever. And I have a son that lives in Arizona, and they have some outstanding sunsets in Arizona. I do that with my granddaughters. We go out and take pictures. And so this is just kind of like a hobby that's become a passion. So
Mm, that's gorgeous. Yeah. Are those the Northern Lights?
yeah.
Okay. Let me share a little bit about you from your bio on line here. Robert Bare, MPA, PhD, is the vice president and a founder of Spiritual Awakenings International. He attended West Valley College, San Jose State University, the University of California, Santa Cruz, and the University of San Francisco, where he graduated with Bachelor and Masters degrees in public administration, a PhD in business, as well as obtaining 2 teaching credentials. His former employment included working for the Santa Cruz Police Department and then joining the California Highway Patrol from 1970 to 1992. And there's so much information here about all the things you've achieved. I want to talk about your near-death experience. We're going to go down to that. So Robert's near-death experience shook him to his core. They occurred shortly after he boarded a plane in March 2009. He had a massive heart attack and was deceased for approximately 45 minutes. His second NDE was for approximately 10 minutes. His NDEs were profiled in the TV show I Survived Beyond and Back, and he was a featured case study by author Deborah Diamond in her book Life After Near Death. Robert has also interviewed for an upcoming episode on William Shatner's show Unexplained on the History Channel, and I can't wait to hear more. So you were a policeman, and before you had your NDEs?
Once upon a time,
Okay.
I like to start this by saying, as a policeman, I was very black and white. Um, I mean, I wasn't spiritual at all. Everything was by the book. And as I talk, I think you'll see how I evolved into the person I am now. This whole thing basically started in 2008. I received a call from a friend of mine. We'd been policemen together since the 60s. And he called me, and you have a good friend when you pick up the phone and you haven't talked to somebody for maybe months or years, and your conversation just continues. You just have that kind of a connection.
Yeah.
And he called, and we talked about, who was still alive, who was dead, where such and such is, or just catching up. And then he says, "I have to ask you something, Robert." And I said, "What's that?" He says, I'm compelled to ask you, are you right with the Lord?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he just kind of dropped the subject. And I kind of wondered about that after we hung up the phone. And a short time later, I was in my home and laying in bed asleep. And I woke up, and my mother died in 2005. And my mother was right at the base of my bed. And she was beautiful. She looked like she did when I was a little boy, all in white. And she just started to talk to me, and I don't know how to explain it. It's like it was telepathic or whatever. But I understood what she said. And she says, "You're going to die, and get your affairs in order." And I was so upset at myself because I was kind of groggy from, I was groggy in a way, but I wasn't, because when I saw her, it just kind of woke me up. But I did not think in time before she disappeared to tell her how much I loved her. It really bothered me. And my father was still alive at the time. And I mean, I was just in a pool of sweat after that. It was just unbelievable. I couldn't go back to sleep. And I called my father and I told him about it. Of course, he wanted to know, did she ask about him? And no, I told him what she said. And in the back of my mind, I started to think about things because I'm getting up there in age. And short time later, my friend passed away, the one that had talked to me about, am I right with the Lord? He died. And I went down to California, and I spoke during his celebration of life, did a little eulogy, because we'd been friends for years. And it was pretty touching. I met his whole family, and I saw people I hadn't seen in years. It was really nice. I got home, and a couple months later, I was asleep, and then I woke up again in the middle of the night, and there was my friend at the foot of my bed. He looked like he did when we were young. And I just looked at him, and he smiled at me, and he said, "Robert, I'm going to bring you through the light." And I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Is this real?" He goes, "I have to leave. I want to go see my grandkids in Sacramento."
Mm.
He disappeared. And the same thing happened where I just started to sweat, and I thought, "Oh my goodness sakes, what does bringing me through the light mean?" I wasn't spiritual at all. It didn't mean anything to me, but I started to wonder about it. Well, I had a full physical exam after that, where I had the blood test and the urine test and treadmill type thing. I passed the flying colors, and I kind of put everything in the back of my mind. And I went to Arizona. My son at the time was a high school teacher and a coach. And during the spring break time, I'd go down there, and we go to spring training games, and got to spend time with my granddaughters. And heck, we'd go to 2 or 3 games a day. It was something that we did. But it was real hot. Um, it was in March and really hot for me, and I'm from a coastal climate from the Northwest, and I was very uncomfortable and just didn't feel good the whole time I was there. I was there for about a week. And quite frankly, I could hardly wait to get back home. I thought, man, I need to get some cooler weather. I mean, it didn't ruin my visit with everybody. In the back of my mind, I just wanted to get out of the heat. So the day came for me to catch my flight back to Oregon. And my son dropped me off at the airport and we said our goodbyes, and he knew I wasn't feeling well. And I started to walk into the terminal, and the line for TSA was just so long. And I thought, how am I going to make this? Anyways, I started with sweating profusely and just not feeling good. And I thought I must have caught a bug or something. And I made it through the TSA line, and then I went into a little market where they sold little things and like books and snacks and stuff. And they had some aspirin there, so I bought a couple of aspirin and I took them. I thought, which is probably a good thing I did. And I thought, well, I'm gonna tough this thing out, and I can hardly wait to get home. So I just kept feeling sick, and we boarded the plane, everybody, and I was putting stuff in the overhead bin, and I dropped dead of a massive heart attack. I mean, it was lights out. I have no idea what happened to my body when this happened. I know there were a couple of off-duty firemen from the Pacific Northwest and a doctor that started to give me CPR and knew how to work a defibrillator. But I wasn't there. I was gravitating into a light, and there was somebody with me. May have been a few souls. I like to think it was my friend, because if he told me he was going to do something, he would have done it. But the colors were just magnificent, and they don't exist on this earth. And everything, it was warm, and it was something. Gravitated up, and I ended up in a situation where I was in front of a higher power, and I know it was a higher power. There's no doubt about it. And the whole area was loaded with like souls. It wasn't like a auditorium, but it was in a way. And when I say souls, I just knew there were spirits there or whatever. I knew it was just something you have. Maybe we're all going to experience. I don't know, but I couldn't look at the higher power. I couldn't look. I was so humble, and I was asked a question, and here again, I don't know what language. I don't know the particulars, but telepathically or whatever, but I understood what I was being asked. And it was basically, what good had I done in my life? And the next thing I know, off to the left, started a life review. From the time I was conceived until the time I died.
Mm.
And I mean, it was an unusual situation and experience, because I could feel my emotions all over again in everything I did. But I could also read and sense the emotions of the people that I interacted with.
Mm.
And when you have a lot of power in your life, like I did, being a policeman for 23 years, especially some of the areas I worked in, like South Los Angeles, Watts, East Los Angeles, San Francisco, Oakland, Santa Cruz, places like that. You were exposed to a lot of unusual things that maybe arrests or shootings or whatever, traffic accidents, whatever. But I saw my whole life unfold. And I mean, there were some good parts. I love my grandmothers. They were so good to me. and they both passed away while I was young. But one lady, bless her heart, um, she was elderly, and she had lived long enough where when she was a little girl, she actually came across the United States, or across the United States in a covered wagon.
Wow.
And she would tell me about these things. And I had a stuttering problem, and I had some other issues, and I had a sister that was only 10 months younger than me. So my mom had her hands full with other kids. And so my grandmother spent some time with me, and I would go to her place, and she didn't have a television. Well, this was probably before TVs. And but she had a record player and a radio, and we'd listen to the shows like The Shadow or some of these other things. And she'd make me dinner, and I would like spend the night. And I when I saw this, I could smell her. She had a certain smell. It just and the way she talked to me, and my her and my mom, they would read me the story, The Little Engine That Could, every day. We didn't have a lot of stuff, but I think it programmed me because I think it had a lot to do with what happens in my life. But in fact, I could probably recite the book right now. I heard it every day of my life. But anyways, I just saw things start to unfold, and I just I just can't tell you what the experience was like, because there were there we my parents had started a construction company, and we really struggled while my dad started the business. And we would have to pick fruit when he got home from work. We have to do stuff like that just to make ends meet. And we had like a chicken ranch type thing too, and it was a real struggle when I was young. And I just I just love seeing some of the people. It was like I had a friend who was a hemophiliac, and he couldn't play sports with us. So I would go over to his place, and I would play board games, especially when it rained. He lived next door to me, and played board games with him, and would have him involved with as much as I could. And his mother, bless her heart, would make me my own glass of cherry Kool-Aid, and she had a way of putting sugar in there, and it just tasted good. And when I saw my life review, I could taste that.
Wow.
I thought, oh, this is wonderful. And there's a story to that. My friend, he moved away, and when I was seeing that part of my life review, I heard a voice say, "You are my best friend."
Wow.
I told my father about this because I told him about my life review, and my dad says, "You know something, Robert? I think I may have forgot to tell you this, but Paul, his dad came by our house in the 80s, and he says, you were working in, you may have been in San Francisco or someplace. So I probably forgot to tell you, but he told us that Paul had died from a blood transfusion. He caught AIDS and died." And he says, "I bet that was Paul." And I said, "I think it was." And I mean, another thing that happened that was real strange, and I believe in karma. I'm going to tell you why. I was in high school, as freshman in high school, and I made the baseball. I was a really good baseball player. and I made the baseball team, and they put me up on a varsity team. They had a junior varsity team and a varsity team, but they put me on the varsity team. And I was playing in the outfield, and apparently the person that I had replaced was pretty bitter about that.
Mm.
And at the end of practice one day, I was in the shower, and the boys' locker room was next to a swimming pool, and on the other side of the swimming pool was the girls' locker room. It was kind of like a U thing with a pool in the middle. And I was taking a shower, and this guy comes and grabs me and throws me out in the swimming pool area, and the girls' swimming team was out there practicing at the time. And I mean, I was pounding on the door trying to get back, and everybody was laughing and stuff. And the swim coach came over and gave me a towel and helped me get in the. I had to go around to get back in. I'm saying this for a reason, and I'm going to skip up a little bit
Okay.
because those of you that believe in karma, you may enjoy this story. Almost the last night, in fact, it may have been the last night, I worked as a California highway patrolman. I decided to take a drive. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, well, and I was a watch commander at the time. And I'm going down the coast highway. This was actually when I was in Santa Cruz. My last work days in Santa Cruz when I was there. And I saw this Thunderbird just kind of serpentine going down the road on the coast highway, and I thought, this guy must be drunk. DUI, so they didn't want the watch commanders tied up like with arrests and stuff like that, in case something major happened and you had to respond. So I called an adjacent beat unit and told them that, hey, I'm gonna make a stop on a DUI where my location was. They said, we'll be right there. So I pulled this car over, started to walk up, and you could smell the alcohol coming out of the car when he rolled down the window. And, oh boy, he's drunk. And so I started to talk to him, asked for the driver's license, and then I had him step out and went to the front of his car. All of a sudden, he looked kind of familiar. And I looked at his driver's license. It was a guy that had thrown me out of the locker room. The officers came up to where I was, and I said, you know something? It's the end of the line for me here. I'm going to do this one myself. So I never told the guy who I was. He kept saying, you look familiar. Oh, no. Got him in the car and patrol car, and he was in the back. And he was crying like a baby, saying his wife was going to leave him and everything. And, that's karma. I never told him who I was.
That's karma, all
Figured it
right.
out later, but I thought, thank you. So this happened again in another, but I'm not going to get into that on this one.
Okay.
But I kept seeing my life review, and I grew up in a time period where having cars and doing stuff like that was a big thing for us. Had a 56 Chevy and 57 Ford and 55 Ford and a 50 Ford pickup. My friends and I, we would all get a 6-pack of Pepsi and work on our cars, not only in an auto shop, but at home on the weekends and stuff. But my sister, that was just younger than me, my parents wouldn't let her go out on a date unless I was there with her. And the rules were, if we went somewhere, she had to be in the front seat and I had to be in the back seat. And I decided to ask this girl to go with me a few times, and I had a really nice time with her. But I was working on my car, and she came up. She says, "Can you let's go to the dance tonight at the Coconut Grove." This is in Santa Cruz. I grew up in that area. And I said, "Tonight?" And she goes, "Yeah, let's go out and take me to the dance." And I said, "I got plans for tonight." And she says, "What do you mean you got plans?" And I said, "My friends and we're going to go cruising Beach Street, and then we're going to probably do some other things." And she says, "Well, can I go with you?" And I said, "We don't like girls to go with us." And in reality, we used to go drag racing. Then we go up to the North Coast and drag race up there. And I didn't want to, I didn't want to. So anyways, she says, "Well, fine." So she left and came back, and she threw this letter at me. And I looked at her, and she was obviously agitated and took off. And that night, she ended up going with some other people that I knew in a car. And she did go down to Santa Cruz to the dance that she wanted to go to. But the car hit a tree at a high rate of speed, and there were 4 people in the car, and 3 of them died. She was one of them.
Oh no.
I was watching this on my life review.
Mm.
When I saw that, I heard a voice say, "You never opened my letter." I knew exactly who that was. And it was just, I mean, you're young, you do things you don't think about,
Sure. Sure,
you
yeah.
know, but I still have that letter. It's in my storage someplace. I got to dig it out and find it, but I keep forgetting to do it. But it obviously meant a lot to her. And I know what's in it. I was a, I mean, I was a jerk. Why not, taking her with me and doing stuff like that, at least in her mind.
Wow.
And
So you didn't read it then? You haven't read it? No,
it's still sealed.
still sealed. Yeah.
And so I would see stuff like this, and the life review, it was, it was parts of it were fun to see again, and parts were not fun. And I realized it was like a reckoning to me. I realized that I was a person that probably should have made more of an attempt to be a decent human being especially when I was younger. And I mean, like when I pitched in baseball, I would throw at somebody. It didn't, they were crowding the plate, I'd throw right at them. And it just, I was play sports same way. I was highly competitive. And so anyways, and by the way, while I'm talking, we're kind of in an era where, there's cell phone pictures and videos and things to document all the things you talk about or see or experience.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think of myself like Christopher Columbus or Marco Polo or Mark Twain, where you go off on an adventure and you experience it, and you come back and you talk in front of the Queen, for example, like Columbus or Marco Polo. He brought back pasta from China and stuff like Asia and stuff like that. Uh, when I'm talking to your audience, there's no pictures, there's no video. It's just my recollection of what I experienced.
Yeah.
And these near-death experience things, they are, if you survive something like that, it has a profound effect on your life, whatever you have left.
Right.
But anyways, I became a policeman. That's another story. I don't have time to get into that now, but
So you became, let me interrupt you just for a second, Robert, if you don't mind. So you became a policeman after your first NDE or before?
no, I didn't have an NDE till I was older.
Okay, so you were already a policeman when you had your NDE.
Yeah,
You were a policeman.
became a policeman when I was 21 years old,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and I did it till I was 44.
Okay, so when you had your NDE on the airplane,
I was 60,
okay.
61 years old.
Okay. All right. And you
I'll give
were
you an idea.
okay. Right. I hear you. All right. So then with that NDE, you're going through your life review, and was there anything else that happened during that?
Oh yeah, I I experienced things like, for example, I was working in Watts right after the riots. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
Maybe you aren't old enough to remember that. I think you're
Oh,
quite a
I'm
bit.
old enough.
Uh, and I was down there, and in fact, that was my first assignment on the highway patrol. And one night, in fact, the people would you go to stop somebody. A lot of times, they would take you into an alley, and the apartment projects would be like a couple stories, 2, 3 stories tall. And it wouldn't be unusual for you to make a stop and have people pointing rifles at you. It
Mm,
was a, it was
mhm,
it was like a war zone. And you'd hear gunshots and you hear all types of stuff going off. And you know, and when you were, especially in that area, I had blonde hair and blue eyes, and I probably stood out a little bit. I was a little bit different,
mhm,
but I enjoyed my time there. But there was one night where my partner and I made a stop, and we were arresting this guy, and about ready to put him in the patrol car, and heard some gunshots go off. Even the guy that we were arresting goes, "Hey, that's pretty close," and it was. So I happened to look up, and there was a guy running at me with a rifle, running towards me, and I yelled at him to halt, and I probably could have taken more action than I did, but I think it was my instinct. I didn't. He came up to me, and he said that somebody had just robbed him, and he was firing off warning shots.
mm.
And when I saw that part of my life review, I heard I heard a voice say, "Thank you for not shooting me."
Oh,